Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week of Sports Community live streams. Thank you very much for joining us. Very excited that sport's drifting back into the stadiums and onto our TV. But to talk all things community sport, I'm really pleased today to have Cameron O'Riordan from Sports TG to join us today. Cameron, welcome to you.
Steve, thanks very much for having us. It's great to be here and off the back of seeing some live sport on our TV screens over the weekend with the return of the NRL. Really excited to be here, so thanks for having us.
Yeah, and the benefit of the NRL going so early is that it allows us all to learn from that and to, as Peter V'landys said, there's mistakes were made along the way and the learnings are made along the way, and I think that'll give confidence to a lot of other sports to follow in due course, which is really exciting. But Cam, you're got the fancy title, Director of Sales and Marketing at Sports TG. Do you want to just who is and what is Sports TG?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Steve. And we provide technology solutions to the sporting community. So the great thing about what we do and the power and the reach that we have is that we actually touch every level of the sports ecosystem. So we work with grassroots sports community clubs, associations, state sporting organisations, national sporting organisations, and even community foundations and trusts, along with professional clubs. So our solutions vary, and we have a variety of different tech products across the board. So in general, we provide membership solutions and registration solutions to the grassroots clubs and community. We also provide competition and tournament management functionalities and solutions. And in addition to that, we provide fundraising materials and product suites and solutions to the professional clubs where they can sell merchandise and even run auctions to raise funds for their charities and their foundations or the clubs themselves.
Well, and just picking up on the auctions, I mean, one of the themes that we've had in the live streams really ever since COVID started is profiling different ways that clubs have made being able to make money or raise funds for themselves during this lockdown period. But I'll go back to the bushfire period. I thought that Sports TG were just outstanding in offering the auction platform free of charge to anyone that wanted to raise funds for the bushfire appeal. And that was a brilliant initiative by Sports TG.
Oh, look, it's, I think it just shows how the Australian community, whether you're an organisation like us or a small cafe down the road, come together in a time of need. And that's what I love about us Australians. That's what we do. We get around each other and help each other out where we can. And what we did during the time, as you alluded to, Steve, was we provided our platform at no cost. We saw grassroots community clubs, large associations, small associations run auctions. And then we saw the higher end of town, your professional clubs. So our AFL clubs, racing clubs, even English Premier League clubs over in the UK all come together to raise funds. So what they did, they put up limited edition items that might have been signed by their star players. So over in Chelsea, we had Sam Kerr, the Australian footballer, auction off a signed Chelsea Football Club jersey that she wore, which was great. Signed pair of boots. But then those money can't buy experiences. So sitting in the huddle with a team, going to a change room. Obviously, those sort of things have now changed given the circumstances and the world that we live in. But altogether with that, we donated some of our normal commissions back as well. Across all those clubs, there was about $160,000 raised in a 6-week period, which was pretty special from our business point of view. And just we're proud to play a little part in that and give back to the community.
It was a fantastic initiative, but in its own right, but what it did show was that, well, for me, that there was an appetite from the community to be participating in sports club fundraising different to the way that they traditionally have, the sausage sizzles, the membership, the scarves, etc. And I thought the online auction methodology of raising funds, just take the cause away for it for a moment, is really a strategy that clubs should be thinking about ongoing, just as part of their fundraising strategy, because the community like that sort of stuff if you've got the right prizes, and it's very, 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 very easy for the volunteer in the club to run, which is what we're all about.
Steve, I think with that, the best thing about it is it just digitizes that experience. So everyone knows that a club might have a sportsman's luncheon or a fundraising night, and you have to be there to bid on that favorite item or purchase that item. And if you're not there, you can't donate your money or you can't give. This just digitizes it. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You might support that local football club you're involved with growing up playing for, and you might live overseas in the UK, or you might live interstate now and you can't get there to see that club, but you still want to be able to participate and give. And I think the beauty around it is it just digitizes that whole experience, that you're seeing people place bids for items right around the world. And we're now seeing more and more inquiries, given the world that we're living in. People want to support their grassroots club right now more than ever if they have the opportunity and they're lucky enough to be able to donate their funds, or they want to support their favourite AFL or NRL team. And, we're seeing the high end of town, those professional clubs run campaigns to say, stick with our club and donate your membership fees, even if you can't attend games right now. And now's the time that these clubs are now pivoting to those online auction fundraising experiences, so they can actually give something back to their members for supporting them, not just a donation of $200 membership fees and so on.
And just before we move off this topic, because you raised a couple of really themes that we've been talking about as well for months now, is that you give the opportunity for people that want to participate. But the key thing is, no matter where in the world they are, that's really important. Yeah. But it also allows people that may not be able to participate to be really valuable to the club by sharing it out to their audience. And I think that's a really important part of modern fundraising, getting it out of that small group that traditionally pay all the money.
Absolutely. And all these clubs have such great reach. These clubs at grassroots level and professional clubs, they have great social media following. They have really engaged members. And, I still, even though I'm not necessarily still active in my local rugby league club anymore, I still follow. I still see what's going on. I still keep up to date with who they're playing each week. And that way I can say, I want to get down to their game. And they're still sharing that information across social. And that's probably the biggest reach, where these platforms such as online auctions and so on can really have that huge reach right across the board.
Yeah, and just the last point on this, but you raised so many really important things. I just didn't want to flick over. It was
that's right.
We don't have to, when we're thinking about auctions, we've got nothing to auction, but our clubs, and if we're a local community clubs, they don't realise that those money can't buy experiences are just as relevant to the club audience as they are to a professional audience. So the opportunity to sit in a selection meeting, sit in the coach's box, go to the huddle, be in the inner sanctum in some way, shape or form is just as relevant at community level as it is at professional level, and is a great auction item.
Look, and I think, COVID's obviously changed how those items can now be auctioned off, but we're now seeing over in New Zealand, where we have some great customers that we work with, we've launched an auction platform called New Zealand Lockdown Connect, Sports Connect Lockdown, where athletes are actually donating their time and it's being auctioned off, so a community club can have their favourite athlete run a training session for them, or sit in that team meeting, or congratulate that person for playing their 100th junior game. So we're seeing a different way of clubs now pivoting to benefit from what's available out there, given the world that we're living in.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, you just mentioned COVID, and I guess the flow and effect of the professional sports getting back on the pitch, the oval, the pool, the court, the octagon, whatever the track, whatever the format, is that the community sports are now following. But the challenge for community sports is there's a lot of restrictions, particularly on numbers, particularly on number of people in facilities. At times, a lot of really heavy requirements that are being quite rightly and quite justifiably put down onto the clubs to administer before they can go as part of going back into training and then competition. So Stack's done a lot of work in this space to make it easy for volunteers. So do you want to just run us through how you're doing that, Cameron?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that is really exciting for us to be able to offer solutions to make it easier on the volunteer administrators out there that are running their club. Every club, depending on where they are in a different state around Australia, is going to have a different set of rules. So we're obviously realising there's different rules in Victoria to WA to Queensland. We can't even get into Queensland right now. The borders are still shut up. So we can't even go to Queensland for a holiday, Steve. But I think what we're trying to do is make it really, really easy for administrators returning to sport. So this Wednesday, we're actually going to run a webinar in terms of how sports can use our solutions to return to sport a little easier and some key information they need to know. But one exciting thing that I'm proud to announce here today, and it's an exclusive for you, Steve, is we've partnered with Rosterify here in Australia and New Zealand, the UK, and all our markets. Rosterify work with a number of organisations around the globe, and essentially they help digitise the volunteer check-in and check-out process. So combined with Rosterify, they will assist every organisation and every grassroots sporting club in being able to manage who attends training by a simple check-in and a check-out method. It timestamps a check-in time that an individual attends training. It timestamps the check-out time when an individual leaves training. So they can then report on all the people that were in attendance at a certain venue for this period in time. And that's really, really important as part of the guidelines that have been released by Sport Australia and returning to sport, that sporting organisations can actually report on that information. So they know that Steve and Cam, they were in the same training group and they were together for a 2-hour period when someone else may have unfortunately had COVID-19. And they know that Steve and Cam may have been exposed to that and need to get tested and need to isolate for a period in time until the results come back as a negative. So with Rosterify attacking and managing that training attendance, what we then do is manage everything that happens on match day. So that Steve and Cam, they took the field at this particular ground. They played in a match against all these other individuals. Then the sports administrator, the club or the association can just by a one-click report pull out all the information of these are the teams that played each other. These were the people that actually took part in the match. Here are their contact details. If they're under the age of 18, here's their parent and guardian contact details. So combined with match day and training, Stack and Rosterify have combined nicely to give a full suite and a full solution to the grassroots sporting market around Australia.
Yeah, and it's so important that we do keep track of the people that are in our venues at the training and competition times, so that if in the worst case scenario it does happen, we can make sure. I mean, this is another theme, Cam, that we've had all along through this COVID period, is make sure we don't have the scenario that our clubs turn into clusters, COVID clusters, and that's
absolutely
that's the key focus for us at the moment, is making sure people get that information. So if you want to join those webinars, Wednesday the 3rd at 12:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. So we've still got a few time zones around the country. There's the link on the screen that you can click into, or into the post accompanying this video will be the direct link into the registration platform. So that's really encourage you to have a look at that webinar. And I didn't know about the partnership you're about to announce, Cameron, with Rosterify. We had Rosterify CEO Andrew Walton on Friday but talking about esports. So looks like we'll have to get Andrew back to come and talk about what he's doing or what Rosterify is doing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the key message for us is it's going to be hard on grassroots clubs how they bounce back from this. And we're really mindful about making it as easy as possible for the administrator, but more importantly, that volunteer administrator. You don't want to be giving volunteers extra work or extra tasks to complete. There will be new guidelines that they have to follow. And that's just a new world that we're going to be accustomed to, that we all have to live in. But what we wanted to do was simplify that process together. And I think that's something that we're really excited to be able to do, not just individually, but together as a unified approach.
Yeah, fantastic. And I really do think it's a perfect platform, the webinar platform, to be giving that information out to people in large numbers. In a way, the beauty of webinars, oh jeepers, like this platform I was going to say, and I've missed the questions, is there's a couple of questions come through which I'll ask you in a tick. But the beautiful thing about the webinar platform is that it allows questions to be asked and answered in real time. And so what that means for the volunteers is that they can ask questions specifically to their club, to their circumstances in that sort of scenario. So there's been a question come through about cost for that sort of service, Cam, which is one of the key. Probably apart from knowing what the workload is, it's the cost to clubs and financial uncertainty is one of the key things that we're all dealing with at the moment.
Absolutely. And that's where we just try to minimize those. So what we try to do is understand what that organisation is, the size of that organisation, and what sort of club or association or sport we're talking about. So what we'd love to do, Phil, is just take that conversation with you individually offline, to talk through what your club needs and how that can assist your club, and we'll be able to communicate to that. But we're really mindful about making sure it's really priced accordingly so it's affordable for the clubs. And what that means is we'll take that conversation to each organisation individually, and assist you if your club needs that assistance moving forward.
Cool. So just wrapping, not so much wrapping up, and we'll just talk a little bit more about what's involved, what you're going to cover in that webinar. But just again, Wednesday the 3rd of June, so in the next couple of days, so really timely. And again, that's one of the beautiful benefits of live streaming and live webinars is we can take information quickly to people as and when they need it. So 12:30. Melbourne Eastern Standard Time. Links are on the screen now, in the post. So what are you going to cover in that webinar from a functionality or from a what do the volunteers get out of coming to that webinar? What are the things you're going to tick off for them, make it easier?
Well, firstly, we'll cover the COVID-19 tracing, essentially managing on training and managing it at match day, which is key points. And then going into a bit more of the complex side of things is how do clubs update their subs, their subscription fees and their registration fees within our platforms? How do they remove cash from their club completely, which is also going to be a very important one coming on the other side of COVID. And then little things in terms of course, we have a fixturing functionality within our system. How do clubs and organisations readjust their fixtures? How do they reschedule their competitions if their competition structures have changed, if they need to move teams in and out of competitions? And we'll touch on that aspect of things. And then more importantly, how do they export and get hold of all that information really easily in case something happens that they need to act on in terms of COVID? How do they export that information so it can go to the relevant government authorities?
Beautiful. So really, in simple terms, and very conscious of your time and everyone that's watching time, in simple terms, that what you're trying to do is use technology to just make it easy as possible for the sports club volunteers.
100%, Steve. And just to pass on all those key learnings and information and what sports need to be aware of, and how we can assist the associations and clubs return to sport, return to training and return to sport. And that's the name of the webinar, getting your organisation ready to return to sport. So I think through our solutions, we can certainly simplify that process for all concerned.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Cameron, thank you so much for joining us on a chilly Melbourne. I know you're in Sydney, but chilly Melbourne morning. So thank you so much for sharing your time. It's a very, very, very big week of guests. And also I'd just like to talk very quickly before we go about eSport Friday. The eSport Friday, for those that aren't watching it, is very, very quickly turning into vital viewing for those that are in traditional sporting clubs, because where the conversation's starting to go is, and where the areas we're going to start to explore over the next month or two that are just fascinating to me, is how people that are effectively playing at community levels in esport competition. So I'm not talking about the elite and all those sorts of, I'm just talking about the equivalent of our community clubs, how community level esport participants are building massive audiences, and I mean in the millions, and how they are turning that into significant commercial funds. And I think the more I learn about it, and I know nothing. When we started this journey 5 weeks ago, I didn't even know how to spell esports. So I'm just learning on this journey. But the more I'm seeing it, there's a lot esport can take from traditional sport, but there's a huge amount that traditional sport can take away from what we're learning in esport, but particularly about how they build an audience, engage an audience, and continue to use the content that clubs can create on a daily basis to engage that audience. So really, really exciting to go down that esport journey. So I invite you to come along with us. So Cameron, again, thank you so much for being part of our sports community.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having us. And